Thank you for joining us on the Going Deeper podcast, a ministry of Fathom Church in Littleton, Colorado. You will never get to the bottom of the depths that are in Christ for you. And our hope with this podcast is that it will help you go deeper with God. So let's dive into this episode of the Going Deeper podcast. What's up, everyone? This is your host, Kyle Knight, and welcome to the Going Deeper podcast that we hope that these conversations will help you go deeper in your relationship with God. I'm in the podcast studio here at Fathom Church with our very own missions minister, Karina Bost. Hi, Karina.
Hey.
And our lead pastor, Chris Martin. Hi, Chris.
Yo, yo, yo.
Yo, yo, yo. Hey, happy birthday, guys.
Woo, woo.
Happy birthday.
This
is episode 52. Which means this is a year of the Going Deeper podcast.
Hey, 52.
So happy birthday. Y'all are one. We're
you
one.
Okay, so 52 episodes. We're about a half hour each. So we're talking 26 hours. They could listen to us for a day straight. I'm going to challenge anybody at the church right now. I would like for you, I know we're doing like a 24-hour prayer vigil. What if you did a 24-hour Going Deeper podcast marathon?
Wow.
They'll be like, I can't listen to Karina or Kyle or Chris talk for days.
Oh, yeah. Hey, this is episode 52, which means we've been doing this for a little over a year.
Right.
But this is our 52nd episode. So this is a year of doing this podcast. Now, we've been doing podcasts before that, but this is a year of this Going Deeper podcast. So we're just going to take this episode to kind of reminisce a little bit, talk about what we have enjoyed about this podcast, and hopefully you have enjoyed this, listeners. Hopefully maybe you haven't enjoyed it.
I don't know why you'd be listening if you didn't. You don't have to.
That's true.
It's not compulsory.
Really
it's not like
there might not be anybody listening to this right now, which is okay. We'll just celebrate us three around this table. That's totally fine. But yeah, we just wanted to kind of celebrate a year of this podcast and kind of talk about some of our favorite episodes, some of our insights of how we've kind of felt like this. But Karina, I'll start with you. What are your initial thoughts of this podcast being a year in? What were some of your thoughts as we started out? Has that kind of changed? Some of that, has that kind of grown? Do you just can't stand me and Chris and you just don't want to sign up for another year of this?
I mean, this might be our last. This could be our last one. Yeah,
this could be our last one. But Karina, your thoughts?
I think when we started this, I just strongly felt like underqualified, just not being a pastor and being a voice on this. But it's been really cool. I think I'm the luckiest person because I kind of have a front row seat to these conversations. And so it's been really cool. It's been a really great growing experience for me, actually, just having to do the work of like digging into these questions that most likely I would have never asked myself on my own. So I think that part's been really fun. And it's really been encouraging to just hear people say things to me personally about being a voice on here and just representing the gals in the church and gals around, whatever. I don't know if my opinion's always spot on, but hey, it's been a joy to be here and fun to have these conversations.
Yeah, I'll echo what people have said. I think it's been really, really excellent having you.
Yes.
Not just because you're a woman. Like, I think you're not like, oh, well, we better get a token woman in here. like that's no, it's not like some weird affirmative action for podcasting. That's not this. Though I do think it was really important for us to have both sexes represented in this room. And I also think that you bring a level of credibility, Karina, to this as somebody who has been raised in the church, somebody who was a PK, somebody who, while you're not a pastor per se, but you are a minister in our church, and you bring a different angle on things that maybe Kyle and I, with 2 seminary degrees, maybe we aren't going to see it from that angle. And so you're more than just the token gal in the room. Like, you're a representative of many people in our congregation who are maybe thinking through and wrestling with some of these topics for the first time themselves. So I've deeply valued it. I think it's been really helpful.
Well, thank you.
I agree.
Kyle disagrees.
I agree.
Kyle
I
wishes
agree.
you would leave.
No,
man, Kyle,
not at all.
You shouldn't have said that before we started recording. Man, that was inappropriate.
Wow, okay, I edit this, so I will take all of that out. I agree with everything that Chris said, Karina. It's been awesome having you here. What has been? I'm gonna keep talking to Karina now because I don't want to talk to you. What has been your favorite episode, or like some that just kind of stick out in your mind of that you liked?
Sheesh, that's really hard.
There's been 52 of them.
I know, and sometimes we get to talking about them, and then I remember one of my favorites.
The last one.
Yeah, that one topped the list for sure. I don't know. I think
jokes.
I'd have to go back and look at the list. Let's see.
That's okay. You look, Chris. I'm gonna ask you what has been your overall thoughts on this process going into this 52 episodes later. How are you feeling?
Well, so Kyle, when you and I started talking, and then we processed with Karina on this before we started recording this, the reason why, like the purpose of this podcast, is we felt like we needed a venue or an avenue to have topical conversations. Because we primarily preach expository texts and sermons in our preaching ministry at Fathom. There are some topics that we get to, and there are some that we just don't get to as frequent. And then there are some that just never come up in the scriptures. And so we needed a venue that wasn't the pulpit. And this was, I mean, the medium is available to us. We had the gear, we had the ability, the technical ability. It's free, right? So like, I mean, it's our time is the only cost on this. But really the question was, how do we help have conversations for people in our church on topics that they are thinking about, but that they maybe don't have the resources or the wherewithal to figure out, or they don't have the time to just like go and start digging into these things. So I think it's been a great experiment. Like, I think it's been a great experience, and I think it'll continue because it's been successful in this way. But for us to talk about, I mean, essentially hot topics, some of them hotter than others, some of them more just geeky for us than others. But to be able to say, hey, what's a Christian worldview say to marijuana? What does a Christian worldview say about pornography? What does a Christian worldview say about anxiety and depression and, lots of these things? So I don't know where these conversations happen, if not in this venue or in like some small group Q&A time. I don't know where these conversations are happening. I mean, probably a bit more nonchalant over a lunch or on a walk with a friend. Right. But where do you get the chance to sit with 3 church staff members who are going to try to faithfully look at the word, look at experience, and try and say wisdom. What does wisdom say to these topics? So I think it's been great, man. It's been fun.
I would agree. And my thoughts starting this podcast out, as we were kind of already had a list going of the things we were going to talk about. And, we wanted this to be kind of short form podcast, not super long, but going deeper into these topics. I kind of thought about, and I was thinking about the length of these, that I'm like, there's no way we can talk about some of these for 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Like we're going to be talking for hours on some of these, which, hear me, we could have, and some of them were longer than others. And that kind of got me thinking as we started this, like, oh man, it's not going to be maybe as deep as we want it. I just feel like we'll just scratch the surface with some of these things. And maybe it won't have the effect that we kind of want it to or whatever. But I think for me personally, I feel like it's helped more that these are, and hopefully it's helped you listeners, that these are kind of short form. Like we're not getting to everything on each and every one of these topics, but to me personally, and from what I've heard from people in the hallways at church on a Sunday morning, is I've heard a lot about like each and every one of these episodes when one of these come out. I get more from other people who have listened. Like we do this for like 25 minutes or 30 minutes or something like that. And there's always more to talk about. And I get to have conversations with you all like who have listened to this, and we talk at length about these different topics after this. So I kind of like that we're not like, hey, let's talk an hour about each of these and exhaust every single like scripture passage or point that we want to make or examples or whatever about each and every one of these. So there's not more discussions. I really enjoy that these are, hopefully they help you go a little bit deeper. But I understand it's like, you can't go super deep in 20, 25 minutes. And so my hope and my encouragement is that you continue after you've listened to this. Yeah. After a 20-minute car drive, you continue to see what each of these episodes has for you. And so that's been good for me. And to realize that we have talked about so many topics in such like short little episodes, but they've been really fruitful. And I've gotten to see and hear from a lot of people at church being like, man, even just that quick little, talk about anxiety, that 25 minutes on anxiety or that 20 minutes on mentoring or whatever it was, like that really helped me go deeper even past this podcast. Do you have some of your favorites, Karina?
I pulled up the list.
Let's go back a little bit.
Let's go back. I actually think when we were talking about mortification and vivification was super cool because I had never heard of vivification. That's a mouthful.
It is.
Saying it more than once makes it harder. I thought that was just really neat to kind of dig into that and learn about that when I wasn't very familiar. I just love learning new things, especially like theologically. It's kind of cool.
I agree with those two because I've heard that's one of the most common ones that I keep hearing from people is those two paired together, that they were like, wow, I just learned so much. Chris, what's maybe like your top?
I like the controversial ones. Just because I like the exercise of having to think through it. So for me, I think the ones on like when we did pronouns, that I think was good. I think thinking through marijuana was a good one. Especially now that it's legalized, and what does that look like? Right. I like the ones that are controversial, I think they seem more fun to me. Because I like to have those conversations. I want to think about them. And I've even since recording some of those, I've had other people say, what about this? And it's like, man, I didn't even think about that. Like, so it's even in my learning and my like progressing and like, no one is ever like 100% solid on this is what I believe about things. Cause your theology and your growth is always progressive. Like it's always like, I'm learning more. I'm seeing this angle of that doctrine or this angle of that theology and a little differently. And I just think it's really helpful to have like this is beneficial for me to verbalize and to almost like workshop some of these things with you guys as I develop out my own stances on these things. So.
Yeah, and it's great to have opinions where you can, it's one thing to sit down and try to figure it out yourself and you can come up with some ideas, but hearing ideas creates new ideas for myself, and then you can express them and kind of it like they build on each other, which is super cool.
Yeah. I personally like the highlighted ones in my head are some of the ones that have to do with our church that we got to have discussions on. I'm looking at the list of like finding and leaving a church, leadership failures, mentoring, like all these things that we really got to talk about, like our church and some of the things that you should be looking for in a church. Obviously I like when we talked about family devotions, when we talk about family, those sorts of things. Love those things. We talked about small groups. I mean, we've talked about church membership. All those kind of things were really, really good. But yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I really liked is that we went through we've kind of covered a lot of almost those, and not really the trending ones, but like those buzzword topics that a church podcast probably should. Like we talked about sex and sin, and all that kind of, all those kind of things, anxiety, gossip, those sorts of things. which were all really, really good. But I think of even some of the other special ones that like even like one-off ones that we got to do. We had the college students on here, and we did the Asbury revival.
Yep.
Which was just so cool to get to have their like some of our college students kind of
I called it Ashbury first half.
Did you?
The first half of the podcast.
Well,
I kept saying Ashbury, and then I like realized and self-corrected midway through the podcast and started calling it Asbury. And I was like, and I had somebody who was like, "Did you realize you were doing that?" I was like, "I didn't," and then I did, and then I felt dumb, but I didn't want to record the whole thing.
And guess what? Everybody knew what you were talking about.
So
it's
good.
It's good. That was really cool.
It's good fun when your pastor looks dumb. So
yeah, for real.
So I love it, man. Should we keep doing these?
Yeah,
I guess
think
so.
we should. I guess so.
If people keep listening.
We
even if people don't listen, you know what? I love this.
Well, we used to make the joke that like, oh, there's our 7 listeners. Good to hear from you, 7 listeners.
It wasn't a joke.
It was it's kind of a joke, kind of not. But I think these have started to gain some traction in our church, and people are using these. I have sent them as if somebody brings up a question about something, should I get a tattoo? It's like, okay, I'll send you the tattoo episode. So like these are a resource that you can share with people.
Yeah.
So that it's, oh yeah, you can listen to this about church. Should I become a church member? Well, listen to this podcast. Should I, start smoking weed? Well, how about you listen to this podcast and probably
should I just start?
Let's talk about it. But like I think this is a resource that that people seem to be enjoying, hopefully find them helpful, and it's not costing us too much. And so we may as keep at it.
Yeah. So, we've got a few more coming out the rest to kind of end this year off. But yeah, we just wanted to thank you, church. Thank you for listening. If nobody listened, we would probably still do this because we just like to talk to each other. It's fun.
We like to listen to ourselves.
Some of us more than others like to listen to themselves.
That's why I get paid.
Here's the real question. Have either of you guys listened to any of the podcasts?
Yeah, sometimes. I don't listen to them.
Oh, because you
edit them.
I don't listen to them all. No, but sometimes I will.
I have listened to a few that were kind of those like hot topic sort of ones that I'm like, yeah, that's always like still good to just kind of refresh what we've said, because we've said a lot.
Do you listen to yourself?
No.
You've never listened to one?
I have not listened to a podcast.
Wow.
But no.
Wow. You don't want to hear your silky smooth vocals?
Listen to a podcast.
No, I really don't.
Okay. All right.
Maybe someday I'll grow up enough and I can listen to myself and critique myself healthily, but
it is hard. Yeah, it is hard.
It is. Well, thank you, church, for listening. Hey, and we want to say this: if you have any topics or anything that you'd like to hear on this podcast, we have a running list of things that we still want to get to and everything. But we love talking to you all about this at church on Sundays or in D groups or whatever it is. So if you have anything that maybe you're going through right now, or maybe you want to just hear us talk a little bit more about, please let us know. You can tell us, or you can email info@fathomchurch.org. Reach out to us. Let us know some topics, or else we'll just keep doing what we're doing. So, but yeah, thank you all for listening. Episode 52. We've done a year of this, 1 year of podcasts. Thank you two for being
do it again.
Here.
Woo woo.
I guess we'll do it again.
We'll
see.
Do it again.
I don't know. We'll do it again. But thank you, church, for listening, and we'll catch you next time.